This video is on mean, median, mode, and range. And I'm going to discuss the definition of each and how you calculate them. And then we're going to do a few examples for each of those. Now, the term mean, that is another word for average. So you can hear those used interchangeably: find the mean, find the average. And so really what that's having you find is the middle or the center of a set of data. So to calculate the mean or the average, it is a two-step process. First, you're going to add the numbers together. Whatever the numbers in your data set are, add them together. And that could be whole numbers, fractions, decimals. And then step 2, take your answer from step 1 and divide by the amount of numbers added together. So for example, in step 1, if you had added together 5 numbers, once you get the sum of those 5 numbers, you would then divide that sum by 5. Because there had been 5 numbers that were added together. So those are your 2 steps for finding the mean or the average. The median, by definition, is the middle number in the data set, the middle number, when the data is organized least to greatest. This is the only one that requires you to organize the data first, right? You can't find the middle if the numbers are not organized. Otherwise, the middle would be different every time you rearranged the order. And there can only be one median. There's one mean, there's one median. Now we get to mode. Mode is the number that occurs most often. And I like to tell my students that most often starts with the letters M-O, and so does mode. So it can kind of help you remember that mode is the number that's most often. So the thing about a mode is you can have one mode, no modes, or more than one mode. And we're going to have some examples of that. This is the only one where you can have more than one potential answer. Mean, median, and even range, one answer. Range is your largest number minus the smallest number. And again, this works whether it's whole numbers, decimals, or fractions. These definitions apply. So let's go through a few examples and we can reference our paper as needed. So here's my data set, and we're going to find the mean, median, mode, and range. Now for the mean, as I mentioned, it is a two-step process. We're going to add the numbers, then divide by the amount of numbers added together. So I'm going to take my numbers here, and I'm going to add them together. Make sure when you're rewriting them vertically that you're lining up for your place value. So 6 plus 6 is 12, plus 8 is 20, plus 2 is 22, 7, 14, 18, 22, 26, plus 5 is 31. So we have a total of 312 when I add my numbers together. And then we're going to take that sum and we're going to divide it by 6 because there were 6 numbers that we added together. And so when I divide this by 6, I get an average or a mean of 52. Now your mean or your average may not be one of the digits in your original data set. It could be a fraction. It could be a decimal. It doesn't have to be a whole number, even if your data set is whole numbers. So keep that in mind. Now your median is the number in the middle when organized from least to greatest. So we are going to have to rewrite our numbers, and I'll rewrite this here at the bottom. So our smallest is 40, and I like to cross them off as I write them to ensure that I'm not forgetting to use one. And I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now the median, when you have an even amount of data, as I do here, you're actually going to have two numbers in the middle, but you can only have one median. So what I tell my students is you're finding the middle of the middle. So basically the average of your two middle numbers. Now, I know that midway between 48 and 50 is 49, and that is going to be my median. But if you did not know the middle of the middle, you would find the average of these two. So that process we did up here for the mean. You would add 48 plus 50 to get 98, and then you would divide by 2 because I just added together two numbers. 98 divided by 2 is 49. The mode is the number that occurs most often. Now looking at these, all of my numbers occur one time. So I would say none. I do not have a mode. I wouldn't say 0 because that's a number, but I would say there is none. And then my range is my largest value minus my smallest value. So my range would be 36. Let's do one more example. So I'm going to find the mean or the average. So again, I'm going to add my values together, my numbers from my data set. So 18 for my ones. So my total is 98. And this time I'm going to divide by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 because there were 7 pieces of data, or there were 7 numbers that I added together. So that determines what you are dividing by. So my mean or my average is 14. Again, that happens to be in the list, but that may not always be the case. Median, I need to rewrite them least to greatest. So my smallest values, and then 12. And again, I suggest crossing them off as you go to ensure you did not forget one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then my median is going to be the number in the middle. Now up here we had two numbers in the middle because we had an even amount of data. But when you have an odd amount of data, your median is just going to be the single number in the middle. My mode is going to be the number that occurs most often. If I look back at my definitions, in this case, my mode would be 10. Every other number occurs once, but 10 occurs twice. And then my range, my greatest value minus my smallest value. So 22 minus 10 is 12. With the mode, we've seen an example of none. We've seen an example of 1. Let's say, for example, with this data, let's say I added a 22. Now, I'm not looking at mean, median, or range again because now those have changed. Just want to show you how mode works when there's more than 1. 10 is there twice, and 22 is there twice. So in this case, if I had been using this data set and not the original, I would have two modes. I'd have 10 and 22. So you can have 0 modes, 1 mode, or 2 modes.